Early on, the U.S. Air Force decided Martha McSally had the right stuff.
When I went through training, there were no two-seat trainers and no simulators. So my first flight was solo. It's my view that courage is not the absence of fear, but courage is actually choosing to do things afraid in the midst of the fear.
Author of the brand new book, Dare to Fly, Congresswoman Martha McSally.
Senator Martha McSally.
A force of nature ready to inspire us today.
And you may think, like, oh, I don't fly fighter jets. What does she have to offer? But the truth is, you're just like me, driven. You're here because you want something more. I made a choice, and each of those choices I made, I didn't think about it at the time, but as I look back on my life, they built my courage.
It's my sincerely held view that fear is the biggest thing that holds us back in life.
So if all we're focusing on in life, in our relationships, in our business, and whatever it is what we don't want to happen, I can give you a 100% money-back guarantee. That is exactly what's going to happen.
When we're standing here and our loss of footing, a health diagnosis, a business failure, an exit, whatever it is,
that clarity of vision, the clarity of the specificity of what you really want. I knew I wanted to be a fighter pilot. I wasn't going to let anybody stop me from that. I had clarity of me being in the cockpit.
They told me I couldn't be a fighter pilot. I said, I am a fighter pilot. I am. We can use these words in a very tactical way because it impacts kind of where we're going and what we're thinking about. And then you build your courage and your confidence. Had I not been through the things I'd been through in the past, I don't think I would have had the strength to say, don't tell me I can't fly that jet just because I'm a girl.
You have the aircraft. You and only you are the pilot of your life. You are free from anybody else's approval over you.
Trust your training, trust your gut, make a good decision, and employ.
When we focus, we change the world.
Identify what's really holding you back and then choose tomorrow. Do things afraid. Today, when you come to work, I'm going to do things afraid. That has you show up as a totally different person.
Don't we all want to say, I lived the life that was aligned with who I really am and why I came here? It's your life. It's your path, it's your calling. Whatever it is you're going for, whatever mountain you're climbing, go get it. I dare you to fly.
So I'm coming over here for a minute because we've got this prop. Look, the folklore is that they built this gun. This is the 30 millimeter gun. We have 1,174 rounds of 30 millimeter. I often have a bullet when I do like Zoom interviews and other things, but I couldn't get it through TSA. But there is one over here. You can see it's a massive bullet. And the folklore is that they built the gun and went to the engineers and said, figure out how to fly this gun. I usually describe it as a badass airplane with a big gun on it. But we also have these other weapon pylons here that you can see. So we can carry a combination of missiles and rockets and laser-guided bombs and GPS bombs and self-protection and other things that we need, depending on what the mission is. It's extremely survivable. Around the cockpit, they have what we call a titanium bathtub, we affectionately call it. It's titanium to protect us, because the entire mission of the A-10 is close air support. And that means that we show up on the front lines when American troops are in firefights, often in very close proximity to the bad guys, often on the move. And the risk of us miscalculating, maybe we're not looking at the same thing, or there's somebody says the wrong number in the coordinates, there's a high risk of the friendlies getting hurt as we're delivering firepower from above. So our entire mission, our entire focus is making sure that Americans can get out of those fights and live to fight another day and get back to their families. And that's why it was built. We can lose all our electrics, all our hydraulics, one engine, and have like major holes in the airplane, flight control damage, and we can still fly home safely. It's pretty incredible. It's super survivable. I chose it of all the fighters we have in the inventory when I was given the choice to be a fighter pilot, and it's just like the honor of my life to have been able to command a squadron of these A-10s. So I want to share a story about one of my missions in Afghanistan, just to kind of frame it for you. It's single seat. There's no two-seat models. And when I went through training, there were no simulators. So the first flight in training that you take is solo, having never flown the airplane before. That's a whole nother story of trying to overcome your fear. Even though I was already a pilot, the challenges of just, I can do this. You go through 3 weeks of training to learn everything about the plane, all the systems, all the procedures, anything that could possibly go wrong, and then you go out with somebody on your wing and they clear you for takeoff. So it's really an incredible experience. They later brought the simulators back, but they didn't have them. So look, I normally bring a little A-10 model with me. This looks so tiny here, in the camera's front. You can't even see it. So, because I normally am trying to show. So in Afghanistan, we would often take off on a routine combat mission, whatever that is. It's an oxymoron, where we were supporting various different operations around the country, but we would literally on our dashboard have the maps of everywhere in Afghanistan, little 1 to 100 scale, 100,000 maps, because at any time you could get called because Americans were under fire and they needed your help right now. So you got diverted to a higher priority mission because of the dangerous situation that they were in. And they would often just give you a call sign, a radio frequency, and a grid coordinate and say, go help these guys. So you just divert, you show up, you're literally pulling out a map, trying to figure out what's the terrain, what's the situation, where's the threat, what's happening down there, what do we know about that area? And then you are getting on the radio with an American who's under fire, who's highly trained, for us to communicate to each other and trying to sort out from the ground and from the air to talk us onto the situation and build our situational awareness so that we can understand what's happening and make sure that we take out the target, okay? And so this particular day in Afghanistan, I'm the squadron commander. Right before we were launching, we had a troops in contact situation where some Navy Special Forces were doing a routine reconnaissance mission down in southern Afghanistan through a winding canyon, and they got ambushed by insurgents, Al-Qaeda elements that were now in a very difficult firefight. So we had 2 ship of A-10s who were already airborne go over to support them, and then we were going to launch and get diverted to go relieve them because it was a bit of a travel time to get there. So my wingman and I, we always fly with a wingman. I'll get to that in the teamwork section. We never fly solo. My wingman and I took off immediately heading in that direction. This was my wingman. My wingman was highly experienced, but it was his first combat mission ever and his first mission in Afghanistan. So he's just still trying to get his bearings about the procedures, the lay of the land, and just everything. And there's obviously just, the nerves of being on your first combat mission and now this high-risk mission. So we show up, the 2 ship that we're relieving, they're low on gas and they need to peel off. And we talk to each other very quickly. He's trying to build my awareness of what's happening and where everybody is in this winding canyon. And now, the friendlies are scattered, low on ammo, low on water. Some of them are climbing up the sides of the canyon. It was just a hornet's nest with the insurgents and the friendlies near each other. It wasn't a clear, here's the friendlies, here's the enemy. We often try to shoot parallel to the friendlies just for the weapons effects to keep them straight, but it was complicated by the terrain and the fact that they were scattered. And so he points my eyes to a specific tree in a bend in the canyon. No kidding. As we're trying to get eyes on, and then he leaves. So now I'm talking to the guy on the ground. He's building my situational awareness as well. We have incredible technology. We're America, right? We're the best at all of this. And you wouldn't believe some of the technology we have. I can maybe share some stories in the Q&A of how we engage with the troops on the ground and how we identify the target and we keep the friendly safe. But sometimes you have to use the simplest things. And so there's a lesson in life and a lesson in business on this, right? Sometimes we get too complicated. Sometimes, things fail. And in this case, the guy on the ground who was on the move took a pocket mirror, a little mirror out of his pocket, and reflected the sun into my eyes and said, here I am, don't hit me. All right? It worked. Got the mission done. And so I came in first because he gave me the particular target that was so close to them. I came in first and I fired what's called a white phosphorus rocket. It just puts up a plume of smoke so we can make sure we're all looking at the right area, because it's in this fast-moving, high stress, it's very easy to think you're looking at the same place, but you're off by one bend in the canyon. And so I shoot a white phosphorus rocket, and he's like, no, the enemy's closer to us. You're close enough, but they come closer. Move back another 100 meters. And so as I'm pulling off, and now I'm getting ready to come kind of back around, and now I'm using my hands instead of my little A-10. Pilots always, flying with their hands is always a joke. As I'm coming around, I pull off the target. My entire heads-up display fails on me. we do everything through our heads-up display. You see your airspeed, your altitude, your targeting solution. You have a computerized targeting solution that, when you're screaming at the ground at, 275, up to 375 miles an hour. This is not a fast airplane, but when you're screaming at the ground and trying to sort that all out in 3 to 5 seconds, we are using computations to help us to correct for wind, to correct for airspeed, altitude. When you're using the gun, it's a precise weapon, but it's not a precision weapon. So it's all based on physics, whether you hit the target. Okay, does that make sense? You have to be at the right airspeed, altitude, dive angle, slant range, corrected for winds for you to hit the target. And we're very specific about our training to put ourselves on what we call a wire. If you think about the term wire, it's like if that's the target, put an imaginary wire in the sky and you want to fly down that perfect wire and open fire at the right time for you to make sure it hits the target, okay? But you're never perfect, and so we're trained to make corrections, and the computer helps you kind of hone that in as it's making those calculations. But you want to be as precise as possible. You might be a little steep, a little fast, a little slow, a little high, a little low. Winds are coming from a certain direction. But now everything failed. It's all gone. So I have no information. So now I have some choices here. I could go say, I can't, sorry, we can't help you. The risk is too high, because the risk of hurting the friendlies if I missed was very high. So I had every right to say, I have everything failed, and I'm not going to employ my weapons because the risk is too high. I could have said, hey, wingman, you figure this out. My wingman on his first combat mission, I could have basically ceded my authority and said, hey, don't screw it up, right? Just get in there and hope that he was able to kind of follow what was happening. But usually when I'm focused on the ground, he's looking around for threats. Like, he's not totally paying attention to all the situational awareness I have. He's just following me when I finally go in. And so entrusting that to him, I would have ceded my authority. That could have been a choice. I decided to trust my training. I decided to go back to the very things I was trained to do on the bombing range every single day when we would go and practice the very basics, go back to the basics and the fundamentals. And so we would use very archaic ways for us to make sure that we got on a good wire, right? That we were now basically using World War II technology to ensure that, we get as close as possible. But that now means you bring up this thing, it's called a standby pipper, that you're able to use even when the HUD fails. But it gives you just a sense of you dial it down so you can point at something, but everything is manual. And now you're looking inside the cockpit, your airspeed, your altitude, your dive angle, and you're having to now look at all these gauges, and you've got 3 to 5 seconds on final to make corrections. Because if you're fast, then you open fire at the point you think you're supposed to, it's going to go long. If you're slow, it's going to go short. If you're steep, it's going to go long. If you're shallow, it's going to go short. If you're high, it's going to go short. If you're low, it's going to go long. And so you could be fast, shallow, and low, and you've got to make those offset. I talk to schools all the time, by the way, and I was like, that's not the time you pull out your iPhone and try and calculate it. You got to be fluent in math. You got to be able to understand this. And so the way we set ourselves up for success is we put ourselves at the best position possible on what we call a base position. So if the target's down there, I set myself up at the right distance, the right altitude, the right airspeed, so that when I roll in on a particular profile, maybe it's a 30-degree dive or a 15-degree dive, I'm starting from as precise a position as possible. And now I'm rolling in. I got 3 to 5 seconds to make these calculations, look inside, look at the target, see what's happening, make a decision when I'm opening fire, okay? 3 to 5 seconds, screaming at the ground, people probably shooting at you. And so I decided, I've done this a million times in training. I know how to do this. And the way we would set ourselves up is we've got all these calculations on our knee board. So I'd look down, figure out what kind of profile I was doing. I'd figure out what that meant, distance, altitude, airspeed. And then we would use visual references from the cockpit. If you can picture the pilot sitting in the cockpit, we would use visual references that I learned on the bombing range, that if I wanted to be, for example, on a 30-degree wire, okay, I would line up on the training ranges, and I would be like, okay, I know I'm at the right distance, and I would look for a visual reference of where the canopy rail is, which is the end of the metal when the glass begins, okay? So picture me sitting in there looking out the side, and I knew that when I was on a 30-degree wire, the target appeared to me a fist above the canopy. When I was on a 20-degree wire, it was a fist and a thumb. And a 10-degree wire is a fist, a thumb, and a pinky. I mean, we're the superpower, right? This is how we're doing it, okay? But I knew and if I was I'm a little bit off, then you make a correction, and then you check everything, and then you roll in, all right? So again, I'm spending a long time elaborating on this. Picture me pulling off from the target. Everything fails. I got to make a decision. Oh, by the way, what I did first was I turned everything off and on, just like Control-Alt-Delete. Right? Who's in any sort of tech field here? It's like, see if that works. Check the circuit breakers. Like, it's not working. Make a decision. It's all happening inside my cockpit. I don't tell my wingman. And so I bring myself around, and I'm like, I know how to do this. I have to protect the friendlies. I have to complete this mission. I'm the squadron commander. I've done this a million times. Was I afraid? You're darn right I was afraid. Like, did I have fear? Did I feel like I was going to throw up? Was my heart beating really fast? Did I have, yes, of course. Like, the stakes were so high. But I had to lean back on I know how to do this. Just do what you know how to do, right? Come back around, set yourself up on base, look at your numbers, figure it out, fist above the canopy, and then roll in. 3 to 5 seconds down file, airspeed, altitude, steep, shallow, up, the pipper, open fire. And the best thing I've ever heard anyone say in the radio was, shack, one, you hit the target. Wingman, come in. We need another attack. So then we came around, and we did a couple reattacks. We had another 2-ship come relieve us, and we were able to protect that entire team through the night, and in the cover of darkness, we were able to evacuate every single one of them out alive. Every single one. Yeah, so... So I tell that story to give you an example. I think I know a little bit about overcoming fear. All right? Just a little bit, okay? But the key is I wasn't born that way. Here's a picture of me as a little girl, okay? I mean, that little girl didn't have that kind of courage inside her. So how did I go from that to, you'll laugh at this picture, I'm at the Air Force Academy now, training other cadets. I have a bayonet in my mouth, so it's like, it's a little bit of a joke, but to that. And I'm honored and blessed that they showed me a display here at the museum, that they have women in aviation, and I'm originally from Rhode Island, and so they've got that picture actually up on the wall, and they're opening it up this Saturday, so that's cool. That's a picture of me in Afghanistan commanding my squadron. How did I get that courage? And I've spent a lot of time thinking about that, not in the moment, not over the years, but now as I look back, like, how did I get that? And so this is my philosophy on it, okay? I think a lot of people, we all know the feeling of fear, but sometimes people feel that, you have to, if the fear is something you have to give into because, that's warning you. And yeah, there's fight or flight. Don't say Colonel McSally wants you to run into burning buildings when you don't know what you're doing. That's not what I'm telling you here, right? But we all are familiar with fear. And I think, sometimes people think, let's wait till the fear goes away, and then I'll be able to step out and to make those choices with clarity. Oftentimes, I'm a person of faith. Oftentimes, people of faith are like, I'm going to pray, and if the fear goes away, It's like, no, you need to actually do things afraid, okay? You have to step out in the midst of the fear, and it's only when you do that, you feel like you're going to throw up, your heart's pounding. It's only when you make the choice. I think courage is a choice. Overcoming fear is a choice. It's only when you do that that you then realize that the fear has no power over you. It's only when you make that choice in the midst of the fear.